The UK food imports most at risk for a super El Nino heat stress this summer. What's up, preppers? Welcome back to another video. Below is a document that I've linked that you can go through and have a look at yourselves. This is from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, heat stress and UK food imports. So we're basically looking at what the impacts could be in a situation that might happen according to reports, but we know is pretty much a very high percentage that this is happening now. So the document basically covers about the increase of temperatures, but even about the global increase in temperatures is 1.3 degrees. In the document, we know that the sea temperatures that affect this dramatically, that if they raise by 2 degrees, then it's a super El Nino. They've raised by 6 degrees. So in this report, it's a conservative estimate, but based on this report, we can obviously imagine things are going to be a lot worse because the temperatures are going to be a lot worse than predicted. The key stuff inside the document is about massive productivity losses. Globally, 1.5 billion people work outdoors, and in 2024, staggering 640 billion potential work hours were lost worldwide due to heat exposure. That's a 98.1% increase compared to the 1999 average. So we know that global temperatures are already going up. We know that summers, especially in some of these places where they're farming this agriculture, it's becoming too exhaustive to actually farm it. So we've seen a loss of them hours already, and that's just in 2024, before we've been hit by something as dramatic as a super El Nino. It talks about agricultural vulnerability. Agricultural workers are by far the most severely affected group, accounting for nearly 2/3, so 63.5% of all potential hours lost globally. When high temperatures combine with record high humidity, the human's body's ability to cool down via sweat evaporation is restricted, rendering physical labor dangerous or impossible. Talks about the threat to UK food imports. The UK relies heavily on imports, 2/5 of its food, according to this document. We all know with supermarkets that 50% of what is on our plate is a form of imported food. And that's not the case for everyone. Some people eat fully UK based, but that's just an average based across the UK and based on the availability of the food that's in our supermarkets. This report notes that 13% of all food imports come from the most climate vulnerable and least resilient nations, focusing on top 15 climate vulnerable suppliers such as Brazil, India, Vietnam, South Africa, places like that. Agricultural workers lost an average of 590 hours per person to heat stress in 2024 compared to 394 hours in 1990. It also talks about cascading socioeconomic impacts. The volatility of extreme weather, including severe heat, droughts, and unprecedented flooding as well, is harming crop yields, accelerating rural to urban human displacement, causing farmers to abandon the sector completely, and directly driving food price inflation. What does this mean exactly from us? Because you might be sat there thinking, I'm not affected, I just buy British. So what is it actually affecting? What's going to be less available in the supermarkets? So number one on my list is coffee. So coffee is hit hard by extreme heat and drought, with key UK suppliers like Brazil, who is our biggest supplier, and Vietnam, who is our second biggest supplier, experiencing damaged yields. This is cited all over in the document, so go and check that out as well below. Rice is next, and probably is quite an obvious one, maybe one you could have guessed. Severely impacted by extreme weather. For example, India and Pakistan are the UK's second biggest rice source, and they've suffered diminished harvests and export restrictions due to extreme monsoon rains, flooding, and humidity. And don't forget, Super El Nino is not just major heat waves, it's also followed by that heavy floods, heavy rains, things like that. So this is what we can expect as well. Tea. how British, very British, but of course, sourced from climate vulnerable suppliers like India. It's not tea that we grow in the UK, despite it being called Yorkshire tea. Most of the tea leaves aren't grown there. So it's one of the major things that we import that would be affected by this because of them climate vulnerable countries. Wheat and corn, hit by intensive heat waves and shifting rainfall patterns in growing regions like Brazil and South Africa, and lentils sourced from vulnerable regions such as India. So that's some of the main key elements. And when you think about prepping, wheat, corn, rice, all things that are quite big staples for preppers in general, things we generally stockpile. So hopefully you're stocked up enough where them shortages won't hit you. But tea and coffee, some might see that as even more of a priority. Of course, this is also going to affect fresh food, but fruits and produce like grapes, highly dependent on imports from South Africa, is the UK's largest supplier of grapes. India and Brazil also big suppliers of grapes. Citrus fruits, including mandarins, tangerines, oranges, lemons, clementines, and nectarines, heavily supplied again by South Africa. Apples and pears sourced from climate-impacted trading partners like South Africa again. Tropical and assorted fruits like guavas, mangoes, mangosteens, melons, avocados, plums, cranberries, blueberries. Sweet corn and tomatoes. Tomato prices in India previously surged 400% due to extreme rainfall, while sweet corn remains vulnerable to shifting seasons. Another big thing for you tea and coffee drinkers is potentially sugar. It's imported from vulnerable regions like Brazil and South Africa yet again, but again, it's something that is going to be very vulnerable to these kind of climate changes. Soya beans, vital for animal feed more than anything else, heavily impacted by a combination of extreme heat and severe drought in Brazil. So even if you don't eat soya beans directly, this is what's used for animal feed. Cocoa and cassava, listed among the crops experiencing notable output declines due to severe climate disruptions. They're already suffering these disruptions. This is before the effects of the Super El Nino, so that's just going to exacerbate it even further. Cashews and other nuts are also sourced from these highly vulnerable regions, such as Vietnam. Pepper, which is affected by the unprecedented seasonal boundaries and extreme weather in India and Vietnam. Some other products mentioned in there is wine. Of course, we do get a lot of wine from South Africa as well, and we've already mentioned the grapes. And fish, we get assorted fish imports from regions facing severe climate and environmental volatility. We do get fish from Vietnam as well. So this document and the articles surrounding this are also kind of targeting and pushing towards climate change more than anything. That rise of 1.3 degrees is talking about general greenhouse emissions and, saving the environment that way. So this is kind of what this is centering around. But to highlight the countries that are in this and the food types are in this, they are in regions that are in the direct line of fire for a normal El Nino event. So a Super El Nino, a Mega El Nino, a Godzilla El Nino, whatever you decide to call it, this is going to have a massive effect on this. It's already being affected dramatically by the rise in temperatures caused by us. But with a Super El Nino, then we could literally see coffee, sugar, tea, rice, things like that starting to really start to disappear from our shelves. Previous research from the ECIU found that climate impacts have added around £360 to the average UK household food bill every year and are already affecting UK farmers who have seen 3 of the worst harvests on record in the past 5 years. Farmers have got a really hard time. They've been having a really hard time in the UK for the past several years, fighting against the powers that be as it is. But add this on there, imagine cattle farms not being able to get the feed as well. The fertilizer prices for farms in the UK that are growing things, we already know that these are being affected massively. £360 on a food bill in a year, I think, is an underestimate estimation. I've done videos 1 year apart where a £20 shop 1 year, a year later, this year, has cost £38. It's nearly doubled in price in a year. And that was rice, I think, was included in that as well. But the prices, the cost of living crisis going on, what this is going to do is really push the prices up. So we're not going to see instantly coffee, sugar, tea gone from our shelves. But you best believe them prices are going to rise very quickly as the information trickles down into the manufacturers and through the supply chain for these products. They're going to come with a premium, and that's going to start to increase very soon, if not be gone completely and be a very rare commodity. But don't worry, the government's coming to save us, right? They've always got a plan. A government spokesman said, "We will always protect the food security of this country. We've committed to maintaining domestic food production. We're investing billions in the development of new technology to increase yields, develop climate-resilient crops, and help farmers produce more food. And we're increasing our water supply by building new reservoirs for the first time in 30 years. These are the steps of a government that is committed to safeguarding food production for the future." Did you know cities in China and towns in China, the city and the town themselves have a 2-week food supply for that entire populace of that town or city as an emergency backup? Guess how long we have? We have no contingency plans in place like that. I'm sure there's dusty documents somewhere saying if this happens, we would do this, but that's just written words. Nothing in action, nothing really actionable by this government. Building new reservoirs feels like a gimmick as well. You can go onto property sites now and buy disused underground reservoirs that they no longer use, that they no longer want. Killing farming in the UK is no way to secure our food industry. How can you say you've got food security when 50% of what we eat is imported? If you wanted to really increase food security, we would become that island nation we're supposed to be, and we'd be able to grow more and have more UK food on our plates. But instead, we choose to punish farmers. We choose inheritance tax. We choose to tax them, to remove subsidies, to cut back on the help that they get, destroying British farming. Food security, the only food security you can rely on is your own. So if you're already prepped, well done, keep it up. Maybe think about that list of products. And if there's anything there, you might want to get a couple of extra of before the price goes through the roof. Big shout out to RJ Stands, who posted the link to this on our Discord news page. It's my first port of call for all the news these days. It seems to be quicker than any other source and any Google alert I get. So thank you, RJ Stands, for sharing the article published by The Independent. I will link the original article below, as well as the food imports PDF for your own reading. Thanks very much, guys. Don't forget, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that wonderful stuff. The links to support me are all down below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.